Let's talk about the all-new Apple iPhone 16e. The Apple iPhone 16e is a good phone. It has a pleasing design and feels like a true member of the iPhone 16 family. It is not a great phone. After all, how could it be with a retro notch in the Super Retina XDR display and a single 48 megapixel camera? There are budget phones costing far less with larger screens and multiple cameras. They're not iOS handsets, and that does count for something. It's been a while since I've had such conflicting feelings about an iPhone. I appreciate that Apple thought it was time to move away from the iPhone SE design language, one that owed most of its look and feel to the iPhone 8. I'm sure Apple couldn't wait to euthanize the Lightning port and the home button with its Touch ID. But instead of giving us something fresh, Apple took a bit of this and a bit of that to cobble together the iPhone 16e. The display is almost the best Apple has to offer, if you can ignore the notch and not be bothered by slightly larger bezels, and also not miss the dynamic island too much. The main 48 megapixel Fusion camera is very good and shoots high quality stills and videos. I would not, though, be fooled by claims of 2x zoom, which is actually the 12 megapixels in the middle of the 48 megapixel sensor. I worry that people paying $599 will be a little frustrated that they're not getting at least a dedicated ultra-wide camera at that price. The strange thing is that there is a bit of this iPhone 16e that is not only new, but for the moment, unique among iPhone 16 devices. That's the C1 chip. I don't know why Apple's cheapest iPhone got this brand new bit of Apple silicon, but it does a good job of producing 5G and even satellite connectivity. In any case, while it's hard to measure the connectivity benefits, this is another good 5G modem. Apple has claimed that this is the most efficient modem they've ever used in an iPhone, which helps achieve the stellar battery life on this device, which is a claimed 26 hours of video streaming. Now, real-world use battery life will naturally, that'll be a different story. On balance, I like this phone's performance, its looks, the feel of it, and I think the system iOS 18 with Apple Intelligence is well thought out and increasingly intelligent. But when shopping for a sub-$600 phone, there may be other even better choices from the likes of Google, OnePlus, and even the anticipated Samsung Galaxy S25 FE. You just have to be willing to leave the Apple bubble. Let's talk about pricing and availability. The phone starts at $599 with 128 gigabytes of storage, approximately 8 gigabytes of RAM. It's worth noting that this raises the benchmark for Apple's most affordable new iPhone. Now, we're talking about design. There is literally no trace of the iPhone SE in this phone. It's basically a hybrid of the iPhone 14 and 15 design, and these edges are slightly sharper than you'd find on the current iPhone 16. The phone weighs 167 grams. That is slightly lighter than the iPhone 16. It's made of aerospace-grade aluminum. It has a matte glass back, and on the front is the ceramic shield cover, which should better protect it from drops. Let's talk about the display. This is almost Apple's best smartphone display. The notch is back, and the bezels, they're just a little bit bigger. If you're coming from the iPhone SE to the iPhone 16e, you are in for quite a shock. This 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED screen is nothing like the 4.7-inch LCD display on the now retired design. The iPhone 16e features a lovely edge-to-edge display with slightly larger bezels than you get on the iPhone 16 phones. That leaves no room for the dearly departed Touch ID home button. Instead, this phone adopts Face ID biometric security, which, as far as I'm concerned, is probably the best smartphone face recognition in the industry. Face ID lives in the True Depth camera system notch, which is also accommodating, among other things, the 12 megapixel front-facing camera, microphone, and proximity sensor. While I've never had a problem with the notch, I can't say I'm thrilled to see its return. The rest of the iPhone 16 lineup features now the versatile dynamic island, which I think most would agree is preferable to this cutout. Let's talk about the cameras, the highlights. A 48 megapixel Fusion camera on the back, a 12 megapixel front-facing camera on the front. The single rear camera at this price might be disappointing. So most bargain smartphones in this range feature at least 2 lenses on the back, and usually the second one is an ultra-wide lens. Without that lens, you lose not only dramatic ultra-wide shots, but also typically macro photography capabilities. Had Apple priced this camera at $499, I might understand. Now, don't get me wrong, I like this lens. It defaults to shooting 24 megapixels, which is a bin of the 48 megapixels available, basically stuffing 2 pixels into each available pixel for your information. There is a 2x zoom option, and that's useful. But remember, it's only shooting at 12 megapixels because it's actually taking the center 12 megapixels from the full 48 megapixel frame. These images are still good, but they're just not the same resolution as the default or even what you could get shooting full frame. Overall, the camera shoots lovely photos with exquisite detail and the kind of color truth I appreciate, especially in people and skies, and it does so in a wide variety of scenarios. I captured excellent still lifes, portraits, and night mode shots. I was also impressed with the front camera because it's especially good for portrait mode selfies. Let's talk about iOS 18 and Apple Intelligence. iOS 18 is a rich and well thought out platform. Apple Intelligence has some impressive features, but we still await the Siri of our dreams. iOS 18 is now smarter, more proactive, and customizable than ever before. I can transform every icon from light to monochromatic. I can fill my home screen with widgets, and I can expand them until they really do fill the screen. That customizability carries through to the control center, which is now a multi-page affair that I can leave alone or completely reorganize so the tools I care about are available with a quick swipe down from the upper right corner. Apple Intelligence, which Apple unveiled last June, is growing in prominence and utility. It lives across apps like Messenger and email in writing tools, which I still find a bit buried and sometimes forget they exist. It's in notification summaries that can be useful for at-a-glance action, but are also sometimes a bit confusing, and in image generative tools like Image Playground and Genmojis. It's in visual intelligence, which, as I've set it up, is one-button access to ChatGPT and Google Search. I think I prefer the more utilitarian bits like cleanup and audio mix. The former lets you quickly remove people and objects from photos and makes it look as if they were never there in the first place. Audio mix is a powerful way to clean up the messiest audio and make it usable in social media, podcasts, and for just sharing with friends. Siri is smarter and more aware of iPhone features than ever before. It can handle my vocal missteps and still know what I want, but remains mostly unaware of my on-device information and feels far less conversational and powerful as a chatbot than Google Gemini and ChatGPT. Let's talk about performance. The A18 is an excellent and powerful CPU. It's ready for Apple Intelligence, and C1 is Apple's first cellular modem, and it's effective for 5G and satellite connectivity. If you're wondering why the successor to the iPhone SE is not a $429 smartphone, you might look at the combo of the powerful A18 and the new C1. The A18 is the same chip you'll find in the iPhone 16, with the exception of one fewer GPU core. I promise you'll never notice the difference. Performance scores are excellent and in line with the numbers we got for other A18 chips, and slightly lower than what you get from the A18 Pro in the iPhone 16 Pro and iPhone 16 Pro Max. The A18 is a chip that's suitable for day-to-day tasks like email and web browsing, and has more than enough power for 4K video editing, which I did in CapCut, and it handles AAA gaming. I played Asphalt 9 United, Resident Evil 4, and Call of Duty Mobile, all made easier by connecting it to my Xbox controller. My only criticism would be that a 6.1-inch screen is a little tight for these games. The audio, by the way, from the stereo speakers is excellent. I got an impressive spatial audio experience with Resident Evil 4. There's also the new C1 chip, which is notable because it's Apple's first custom cellular mobile chip. Previously, Apple relied on, among other partners, Qualcomm for this silicon. I didn't notice any difference in connectivity with it. I was impressed that I could use text via satellite. Now let's talk about battery life. It is long-lasting. It does have wireless charging. There's no MagSafe. On the iPhone 16e, it's clear Apple prioritized battery life over some other features. That would explain, for instance, why we have wireless charging but not MagSafe support. Adding that magnetic ring might have eaten into battery space. Even the decision to include one camera instead of two probably helped with what has to be a larger battery than even on the iPhone 16. Apple rates the iPhone 16e for 26 hours of video rundown battery life. That's about 4 hours more than the iPhone 16. Now, in my real-world testing, the battery life is very good, but varied use can run down the battery in far fewer than 26 hours. In one day, when I did everything from email and web browsing to social media consumption and then a lot of game playing, battery was about 12 hours. Gaming in particular really chewed through the battery and made the phone pretty warm. Now, my own video rundown test, I played through episodes of Better Call Saul on Netflix, got about 24 hours of battery life. So what do I think of the all-new Apple iPhone 16e? Let's start by forgetting the iPhone SE. The iPhone 16e really does represent a whole new class of affordable iPhone. It has an excellent screen, powerful performance, a cutting-edge CPU with Apple Intelligence, and even a brand new C1 modem chip. It also is a bit frustrating. Apple raised the price so it's almost out of budget range, but didn't add a second camera and brought back the notch. Ultimately, it's another great iPhone, but maybe not the best budget phone choice.